The megastars, the millionaires, the masterminds. Seriously wealthy, glamorous and influential. They are the rich and famous. The outrageous, the eccentric, the indulged. It starts with a passion for excellence and ends with untold wealth and immeasurable influence. They are the connoisseurs. Dame Vivienne Westwood, the grand dame of British punk fashion and still controversial today. Among Westwood's fans, always desperate for the next shocking collection, are Gwen Stefani, Mick Jagger, Marilyn Manson, Naomi Campbell and Helena Bonham Carter. Vivienne Westwood was, of all things, a demure schoolteacher when she met the 18-year-old rebel without a cause Malcolm McLaren in 1970. And together they became the Adam and Eve of punk. McLaren and Westwood opened a shop in London called Let It Rock to trade in their own style of punk and new wave fashion. Over the next 10 years, Westwood metamorphosised from working-class housewife into a designer of outrageous clothing. Westwood's first shocking designs used bondage gear, safety pins, razor blades, drapings of bicycle and lavatory chains and spiked dog collars. Throwing in traditional elements of British design, like tartan fabric, just made the overall effect more subversive. When Malcolm McLaren, the manager of the Sex Pistols, dressed his motley crew in Westwood's clothes, it began a fully fledged cultural revolution. Westwood revolutionised fashion, and the impact is still felt today. The veteran designer's annual collections continue to show her signature combination of fearless non-conformity with a resilient sense of tradition. Romantic, historical, fantastical. One collection was influenced by pirates, another by witches. She may draw from classic Greek or ethnic Peru. Sometimes the pieces are constructed to look ragged and worn out. Sometimes sculpted into taffeta-enveloped ladies from 17th century portraits. The sexagenarian, whose motto is "You have a much better life if you wear impressive clothes," has been honoured with the biggest exhibition the Victoria and Albert Museum has mounted for a British designer. The exhibition, touring the world, includes dozens of her outfits from the past 3 decades, showcasing her wild use of the bustle, the corset, the crinoline and the tartan print. The pieces range from early punk to her grand historical evening gowns. Vivienne Westwood has kept herself Anglo-centric, with only a few exclusive shops in London, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle and Leeds. But in typical eccentric style, the dame has opened a shop in Moscow, just a few blocks from the Kremlin. Russians can now buy the design from the woman who dressed the Sex Pistols. The exclusive location of the store and the high prices, by Russian standards, means the rich, rather than the rebellious teens, are more likely customers. If you're visiting London, or for that matter Moscow, and you'd like to take a piece of Westwood home, you might like to start small, perhaps a $30 Westwood handkerchief or a $40 pair of Westwood embossed socks. As for the haute couture, if you have to ask, you haven't got enough money. Rather ironically for an old punk, Vivienne Westwood was awarded the female equivalent of a knighthood, the title of Dame, by the current British monarch. Now inducted into an order whose motto is for God and the Empire, seems a far cry from the girl who incited the safety pin-led anarchy. Still, the matriarch of punk chic maintains her rage with t-shirts and accessories that carry political slogans. Westwood said her intention has always been to use her fashion as an act of resistance against propaganda, consumerism and conventional thinking. "I am proud of myself," says Vivienne Westwood. "I'm always astonished by what I do. I certainly think that people wouldn't look the way they look or think about clothes in the same way if I had never lived." Now that's confidence. The most successful English composer living, Andrew Lloyd Webber, or Sir Andrew if you please, is the undisputed king of contemporary musical theatre. His 13 musicals have run for decades on Broadway and in the West End. The shelves of his den are groaning with honours and awards, including a knighthood in 1992, followed by a peerage, 3 Tony Awards, 3 Grammy Awards, an Oscar, an International Emmy and a Golden Globe. Andrew Lloyd Webber's company, the Really Useful Group, is one of the largest theatre operators in London, and he is ranked in the top 100 richest Britons, with an estimated $1.5 billion in the bank. His prolific output started with Jesus Christ Superstar and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, the firsts of many collaborations with lyricist Tim Rice. Then came 1976's Evita, a musical based on the life of Argentina's Eva Perón that gave us the unforgettable hit song Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. The hit Evita ran for 10 years in the West End until it transferred to Broadway. The show eventually made an estimated $240 million. The album sold 3.5 million copies, and the film rights were sold for $1.6 million. So, what's the key to Lloyd Webber's phenomenal success? Believing in ideas as crazy and inspired as Cats. The 1981 dance musical was based on T.S. Eliot's Old Possum's book of Practical Cats, a book the composer loved as a child.
Are you mean like a minx? Are you lean like a lynx? Are you keen to be seen when you're smelling a rat?
Nice idea, they said. But would it work? Yep. It was to become the longest running musical on Broadway, spanning a reign of 18 years and earning $640 million worldwide. This record would eventually be broken by another Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. After Cats, the hits have just kept coming, each with a widely different premise. In 1986, Lloyd Webber premiered The Phantom of the Opera, inspired by the 1911 Gaston Leroux novel. The story of a disfigured musical genius who haunts the catacombs beneath the Paris Opera fired the imagination of the world. The Phantom was a blockbuster, and it's still running in both the West End and on Broadway. In 2006, it overtook Cats as the most successful theatrical endeavour of all time, grossing more than $3 billion worldwide in 65,000 performances throughout 110 cities. With a net worth of $1.5 billion to play with, you can forgive the man a few indulgences. Andrew Lloyd Webber owns an important collection of Victorian art from the pre-Raphaelite movement. The composer loves the works as a record of life and architecture of the Victorian era and vows that after his death, his collection will remain on public display. The many homes of the entrepreneur include an apartment on the 60th floor of the Trump Tower in New York, priced at $22.5 million, and a charming 4,000-acre horse stud at Watership Down in the English county of Hampshire, the same down made famous by Richard Adams' novel of the same name. Hey, Watership Down, the story of a bunch of bright rabbits. Sounds like a good idea for a musical. What do you think, Sir Andy? Pedro Almodovar, a connoisseur of life, an artist, and a totally original storyteller. If you don't know his name, you will know his highly creative films. Almodovar is the most successful and internationally known Spanish filmmaker of his generation. Almodovar's films have a worldwide following, and he's become a major figure on the stage of world cinema. Think of Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown and Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. The melodrama, the humour, the utter irreverence, and the sex. Pedro Almodovar grew up impoverished in a small rural town in Spain, one of the few residents who could read and write. The town didn't have much, but it did have a cinema, and there he began his real education, from Professors Billy Wilder, Alfred Hitchcock, and Federico Fellini. In 1967, Almodovar headed to Madrid, the centre of a thriving counterculture, with a firm goal to be a film director. His short Super 8 films, with their campy style, outrageous humour and explicit sexuality, amassed a cult following. Making professional films by the 1980s, Pedro Almodovar's style had come into its own. Strong female characters, themes of desire, often stories of downtrodden housewives struggling for independence. Even with the controversy over violence in his films, Almodovar's reputation as the terrible child of the Spanish cinema was cemented. He said, "I have my own morality, and so do my films." By the premiere of his first huge international success, 1988's Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, a feminist light comedy, Almodovar was firmly established as a woman's director. Almodovar has said that women make better characters. Women are more spectacular as dramatic subjects. They have a greater range of registers. And yet, his 2002 Academy Award-winning Talk to Her revolves around two men who become friends while taking care of the comatose woman they love. The film was hailed by critics and embraced by art house audiences. Almodovar won numerous honours across the world for his film, including a French César for Best Film and an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. Talk to Her was followed by Bad Education in 2004, a worldwide cinematic success and a richly Baroque tale of mixed identities that spans 3 decades. The controversial Bad Education stars the international It Boy, Gael Garcia Bernal. The 2006 film Vulva, in fact his 16th film, further develops his theme of women and families. The comic melodrama, which tells the story of 3 generations of women in the same family who survive the very threat to their lives, is an ode to female resilience. Vulva is Penelope Cruz's first collaboration with the world-famous director, and it's clear he's found his perfect actress and muse. Vulva beautifully showcases the very best of Cruz. She even dons a Sophia Loren-esque padded butt and sparkles in her native tongue. Almodovar won the 2006 European Director Prize for the film, and Cruz won Best European Actress. Almodovar's films are more about art than commerce. However, while the films are not global box office smashes, Vulva, for one, earned over $50 million internationally. It's not always easy being the outrageous director. At the premiere of Bad Education in 2004, an outraged right-wing mob hurled rotten vegetables at the director, cast and audience entering the new cinema. Still, after winning 2 Oscars and numerous other awards both at home and abroad, I kind of think the renegade director might have almost enjoyed it. Enzo Ferrari, a connoisseur of the car, the fine art of fine-tuning, the master of motoring. He was the founder of the Ferrari Grand Prix motor racing team and the Ferrari car manufacturer. Born in Modena, Enzo Ferrari grew up poor with almost no education. But a little boy doesn't need education to know he loves cars. Fast cars. After serving in World War I, he was keen to get his hands greasy and took jobs in small companies pulling apart cars. By 1920, he had a job at Alfa Romeo, and even better, they let him behind the wheel to race. His reputation grew, and even Mussolini praised his racing prowess. He started his own Ferrari racing team with the support of Alfa Romeo in the 1930s. He developed the race cars and built up a team of over 40 drivers. By the end of the 30s, Enzo Ferrari left Alfa Romeo to refine his own style, his own badge, and to begin an empire built on motoring as a connoisseur's art. In short, he was ready to make cars bearing his own name and the famous prancing horse. The horse was the symbol of an Italian World War I ace fighter plane and became the logo of Ferrari, symbolising sportsmanship, gallantry and boldness. His first car was the Tipo 815, the first true Ferrari. Ferrari's first major racing victory in the Formula One World Championship was the British Grand Prix of 1951. Then the wins kept coming, not only on the Grand Prix circuit, but also in events like Le Mans. Enzo Ferrari sold the company's sports car division to the Fiat Group in 1969, but retained control over the racing division and a strong influence over the company's direction until his death in 1988 at age 90.
I was lucky enough to work with him for 4 years, very successful here in the 70s. And I'm sure that from the sky, at the moment today, he's very pleased of his factory, because Ferrari is living a very good moment in the road cars activity, and Ferrari is back again at the best level in Formula One too.
In 1996, Ferrari made a landmark decision in its history by hiring two-time defending world champion Michael Schumacher for an astronomical salary of around $30 million a year. Schumacher, backed by his hugely successful Benetton team, blitzed racing records and revitalised Ferrari to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, the Financial Times named Ferrari #1 on its 2007 list of the 100 best workplaces in Europe. They must be doing something right. Ferrari sells 4,000 of its Eat Your Heart Out autos annually at a cool $140,000 each. And if that sounds rather exclusive, it's no coincidence. The company, with that famed rampant stallion logo, has a production limit of 4,300 autos per year, maintaining both quality and rarity. What's next for the prancing horse? Apparently, a Ferrari theme park. Not sure what Enzo would think of that. He's one of the most outspoken designers in fashion. Karl Lagerfeld's eccentricity is as legendary as his snow-white hair. Lagerfeld, known as Kaiser Karl, is widely recognised as one of the more influential fashion designers of the late 20th century, and he has a net worth of $800 million to prove it. Although born in 1933, he insists to the media he was born in 1938. It's the kind of conceit we can expect from a man who lost 40 kilos just to fit into a new suit. Starting at age 22, Karl Lagerfeld worked for many fashion houses throughout the 50s, 60s and 70s, including Patou, Tiziani and Chloe. Despite moving from label to label, Karl has always claimed his authentic stamp. Chic, elegant, the dripping drapery of the 1930s cinema queen. His fans expect frills and ruffles, delicate beaded evening gowns, light, layered, even feathered, flowing slim dresses in pastels and strong solid colours. It's a look personified by his longtime muse, the ultra-feminine Claudia Schiffer. Karl Lagerfeld is perfect as the artistic director of Chanel. He has made his global reputation by interpreting Coco Chanel's original vision for a younger, more modern customer, while managing to keep its legendary cachet. The designer says that if he didn't keep updating Chanel, it could turn into an old classic company. The company now has a net worth of $4.5 billion. Celebrity devotees attracted to the Chanel name include A-listers Kylie, Trudy Styler and Sting, Diana Kruger, Victoria Beckham and Katie Holmes. And not to forget fans of his men's collections, Lenny Kravitz and Kanye West. Lagerfeld describes himself as a professional dilettante, speaking several languages and expressing himself also in art and photography. He started his successful career as a photographer in the 1980s and continues with exhibitions like a study of male nudes, which is called fittingly The Emperor's New Clothes, and a black and white series of portraits of Brad Croning, now the best paid male model in the world. For Lagerfeld's photographic work, the German Society for Photography awarded him with the Cultural Award in 1996. Lagerfeld's empire includes revenue from Fendi, Lagerfeld Gallery and several ready-to-wear ranges, like H&M. But the German says that despite the huge success of his ready-to-wear designs, haute couture is his true love. He loves the refinement, the sheer craftsmanship. He says some people like to go on vacation. I do couture. In fact, Karl Lagerfeld could have gone on permanent vacation, born, as he was, into the fortune his father had made introducing condensed milk to Germany. But why stop there? The man is everywhere. The runway, the bookshelves with his own diet book, his own designer hotel. He's even on your CD player. Karl Lagerfeld, who is obsessed with music, owning upwards of 70 iPods to hold his collection of over 60,000 CDs, has just put out a CD of his favourite tracks. The Lagerfeld Diet Book promotes drinking Diet Coke and then moving as little as possible lest you get hungry. Not sure you should try this at home, folks. But then, something is definitely working for the man they call the unparalleled interpreter of the mood of the times.